morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order this 8th day of November. I'm looking at the agenda here, the 8th day of November, 2018. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilwoman Scalera.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, thanks. And we did want to go through the agenda of that November 13th meeting that I just mentioned. We're going to do that first today. We have a meeting coming up on November 13th here at Town Hall. This will be an afternoon meeting, a 1 o'clock meeting. And there'll be 5 public hearings. The first on acquiring land at 2913 Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton through the CPF program. The second accepts a grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Sag Hill in Bridgehampton. The third is a public hearing on 2019 fire protection contracts. The fourth is a public hearing considering increases proposed in the maximum amount to be expended annually in the town of Southampton special districts. And then the last one is on the 2019 preliminary budget. And let's go through the resolutions as quick as we can. If you have a question, bring it up. 1029 authorizes the acquisition of property located at 20 Shinnecock Road, Hampton Bays, New York, for purposes of community development. That's that Bel Air property. Christine?
30449 authorizes the purchase and installation of fencing from Suffolk County Contract with residential fences.
3387 authorizes the supervisor to sign contract extension for ammunition for police department with Eagle Point Gun, TJ Morris and Son.
30455 to authorize the supervisor to sign contract extensions for street sweeper parts and gutter brooms with Glacial Equipment Incorporated, Malvese Equipment Incorporated, Old Dominion Brush Company, Vaso Systems, and Northeast Sweepers and Rentals. 30451 to authorize the supervisor to sign contract extensions to furnish and deliver assorted aggregates and soil materials with Bistrian Materials Incorporated, Southampton Excavation and Site Development, Benimax, and East Coast Mines.
28372 authorizes the supervisor to execute a 2018 contract with CMAC B. Sami Architects C for the Southampton African American Museum. 30454 authorizes the supervisor to execute a 2019 contract extension with CAC Contracting Corporation, Rosemar Construction, Inc. for Suffolk and Suffolk Asphalt Corporation for furnishing and installing concrete.
30456 authorizes the supervisor to execute a 2019 contract extension with South Fork Asphalt Corporation for drainage installation contract east of Shinnecock Canal, and with Roadwork Construction Corporation for drainage installation contract west of Shinnecock Canal.
30452 authorizes the supervisor to execute a 2019 support agreement for Happy Software, Inc., for Town of Southampton Housing Authority for the administration of the Southampton Town Housing Authority Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program.
30457 authorizes
I'd like to have some of that.
Authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Univar USA Incorporated for the supply of liquid caustic soda.
30453 authorizes the supervisor to execute a 3-year contract with Cullen and Danowski LLP for the annual audit of community preservation funds.
Town Board Resolution ID 30450 to authorize the supervisor to execute an amendment and a 2019 extension with Clearflow Technologies Incorporated for the acceptance of North Sea landfill leachate wastewater.
03442, award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract for demolition at 18 South Crestwood Drive, Remsenburg, with Ken Rossell Incorporated. 30458, this is the 2019 notice to bidders for tree and stump removal. Town Board Resolution 30444, this is 2018 notice to bidders for demolition of 21 Godfrey Lane, Remsenburg. 30445, this 2018 notice to bidders for demolition, grading, and wetland restoration.
30411, 2018 notice to bidders for Mercury Marine Parts. 30396 amends the 18 adopted budget for senior services transportation. 30429 amends the 18 adopted budget for various departments. 30428 authorizes closure of CPF capital project. 30397 authorizes expenditure from Good Ground Park restricted account. 30310 correction to Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corps Service Award Program.
30441, 2019 Youth Board appointments. 30448, appoint Dr. Paul Garson to the Southampton CAC. ID 30459, revisions to rules of operations for citizens advisory committees.
Is that a hearing or that's just that's adopts the rules we discussed?
Yes. It's not a hearing adopting the rules.
Okay. Were we getting input on that from our CACs? Did we route it to them?
No,
Okay.
although it was available after the work session.
Okay. They're all aware of it?
Yes.
Okay. So 30398 authorizes the town attorney to accept settlement of a claim against Starlight Taxi and Limo and Shabir Hussein. 30350 accepts resignation of an automotive equipment operator in highway. 30253 appoints William Thatcher to Office Application Specialist position in Human Resources. 30382 appoints Christian Peterson to Environmental Analyst position in Land Management. 30254 appoints Gregory Lagaren to Ordnance Inspector position in Investigations Enforcement Unit. 30343 appoints Monica Panaccia to Senior Neighborhood Aid position from Civil Service List. 29838 appoints Tammy Wimpelberg to Assessment Assistant position in Assessor's Office. 30409 appoints Tara Schrag as Temporary Justice Court Clerk.
Town Board Resolution ID 30462, a public hearing to consider enacting Town Code Chapter 139 to establish community choice aggregation energy program. Later in our work session, we'll be hearing more about that.
Okay. 30385 is notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Brocard Development, Inc., property Flanders, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. 30318, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of the Benedict C. Larson Revocable Trust and the Larson Family Trust, West Hampton, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
30461 is a notice of public hearing to accept an open space deed of dedication for Suffolk County Tax Parcel 900-145-337 in exchange for a development right certificate pursuant to Section 244-4A of the Southampton Town Code. 30460 is a notice of public hearing to accept an open space deed of dedication for Suffolk County Tax Map Parcel 900-98218.36 in exchange for a development right certificate pursuant to Section 244-4A of the Code. 30438 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Section 330-202, Article 12, signs, changing the extended amortization rate for signs to be in compliance to January of 2024.
30463 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Section 330-11A, accessory apartments, and Chapter 270, rental properties, to provide for additional affordable housing throughout the town. We've had a few work sessions on this. The only thing that's different from what we last discussed at work session is the rents are a little higher than what we had originally set and a little lower than Tommy John's recommendation at, I think it was 75% versus 65%. They were able to find a HUD affordable rent chart that sort of had numbers that made a lot of sense. I discussed this with Tommy John, and I made those changes, so.
You also added income eligibility.
I'm sorry, and.
You added income
we added
eligibility.
Yeah, that's something we discussed at the work
Yeah,
session.
no, I know, I just wanted, it was added.
So I think it's good. We'll let the public weigh in. Right, it's also only allows the increased density in the lowest density areas.
With development, right?
Right, with development rights. And makes accessory apartments, all future accessory apartments would have to be affordable. Are we up to,
30323, accepts a grant of open space in connection with the subdivision map of Sag Hill, formerly known as Michael Bennett of Southampton.
and then 30202, authorize acquisition of lands of 2913 Montauk Highway LLC, Bridgehampton, and amends the CPF stewardship plan to include the property. All right, then there's also one add-on, accepting the retirement of Russell Cradaville, Town Management Service Administrator in Business Management. So add that to the packet.
And before you close the draft review, if we could just revisit page 25, the revisions to the rules for the CACs. We read through this, and it speaks to minutes that they may take in there, but it doesn't speak to the requirement of filing and where to do that. And
I
just-
believe it says in there that they need to forward them to CRC, but I will double-check that.
Okay, as long as they understand that they're required monthly, or as frequently as they meet, and they take minutes, that
Right.
they
I'm
do
pretty
that.
sure it's in there, but I'll double-check and get back to you.
Okay, if you would.
Yeah, we could always amend it to clarify that issue.
I think we had discussed that at the last discussion of this, being forwarded to CRC.
Right, but I don't know that we read that.
Okay.
It may have been discussed, but it might not have been articulated.
Well, so it does say they have to be submitted.
Yeah.
Where does it say that?
It says that that's their method of communicating to you through minutes, but it doesn't, I don't believe it.
Does mention the word submitted minutes.
Well, it
It
does.
says it in 5 that they have to conform to the format. If it doesn't, you can just add it there. You need to submit it.
It says in under E, meetings, 6, the submitted minutes of the CAC are advisory only. So there's an assumption that they're submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarify.
Number 5.
Yeah.
The one above it.
Minutes should conform to the recommended format.
Just
That's,
have it and be submitted through. Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, have it.
Here, and you have it right here.
I think it should be
Says the
filed with the town
submission of
clerk. The
approved
town
minutes
clerk's
to
office
citizens'
presumably will
response
always
center.
be
Yeah,
there.
In
four,
B4.
B4.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
You get everything.
Yeah, I thought it was in there.
And
So you
B4.
good, Sunday?
it is in B4.
Town board and all committee members.
Approved minutes shall be sent to the town board and all
Yep.
committee members. I don't see where it says that it's required to be filed with the town clerk, though.
Oh, I
The
see.
approved
There's a
minutes of the
difference.
citizens' response.
You know, if
We'll
some
just
future
include
town
the town
board.
clerk.
Clerk, just
Okay.
add
The
and the
submission
Under
to
B4.
approved
So we'll put it in
B4.
B4,
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunday.
and then you disseminate them, right?
That's it.
You would disseminate them.
Via
then, or-
submission of, so it says they're supposed to be
Absolutely.
submitted to the Citizens Response Center.
And it should say and the town clerk. Or,
Town clerk.
The Citizens Response Center is not the repository for the records for the town of Southampton. The town clerk's office is.
Well, then,
So-
Should be town
maybe
clerk.
maybe we should take out Citizens Response
He can
Center.
distribute, they can distribute it from the CRC if that's what you choose, but the filing of the minutes, absolutely.
shouldn't it- maybe it should just go to Sunday.
Why don't we
Yeah.
just have it
Yes.
go to the
I
town
agree with
clerk?
Okay, so take out
And then you can
CRC.
get
Well, we distribute all the rest of your communications, so that would be in line with what we do now.
Because the CRC would be responsible for getting the minutes on the website, which we've told the CAC members that we would provide that service.
And we
So
can-
if we could keep that and just add and file with the town
clerk's
clerk.
office.
But Frank, we could also add the CRC onto our distribution when we
Well,
distribute.
either
to
way,
the
I just
town.
don't, I hear the suggestion of eliminating the CRC, because they would take the minutes and put them on the website and the agendas wouldn't necessarily go to the town clerk's office. I just don't want that mechanism to be
Well-
not available to the CAC.
So why don't we, though, rather than make the CAC chairs distribute them to two entities, why don't they distribute them to the clerk, and then the clerk will disseminate it to the CRC and the town board?
Whatever process you want to follow, as long as we make sure both get it, because both
As
have
long-
a...
And as long as they're reconciled, there's no amendments made to the
Right.
minutes.
Both,
So
both
that's-
entities have an important role in making sure the minutes get certified and appropriately distributed.
Goes to the clerk, who then disseminates the document to the CRC and to
That works
Yeah.
perfectly.
We're talking about minutes
So this is
now.
what I have,
about
via
agendas?
submission of approved minutes to the town clerk, who then disseminates the document to the town board and CRC.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the resolution will appear that way?
Yes,
Okay, so okay.
I will change it.
Amending D4 to include that language, yeah.
Who then-
And I'll double check that there's anywhere else that may need that throughout the document. Okay.
Okay. All right, good. Any other changes? Okay, we're good on that. Perfect, thank you, Cindy, so you can go ahead and put that together.
We will move your agenda right along.
All right, so we're going to switch topics here to talk about the town's energy programs. I have a number of people I think we're going to bring up, or hobble up. Sorry, Lynn, what? Your foot. So,
So glad it's not me.
yeah, you were there.
Not that one.
Well, this boot is making a round.
It is, that was my boot. Hopefully, it stops with you. Thank you.
So we're going to talk about town energy programs. We have Michelangelo Lieberman from the Planning Department. We have Lynn Arthur from our Sustainability Committee. We have Frank Sapone, Deputy Supervisor. Christine Fenton, our Town Engineer. Janice Shearer, also from our Planning Department, Assistant Planning Director. So who's leading this?
Well,
Is it you?
I drew the short straw, so I'm going to
All right.
introduce, and then Lynn and Christine and Michael and Janice will give you all the important details. I think we're here today with some good stories about the success of the town with regard to energy utilization and the reduction of that consumption of energy. The board obviously plays a very important role in establishing policies, and those would include the obvious things like our sustainability plan, like our HERS ratings, like support for solarization program, like the support for the LED lighting project. All of those implementations are a result of policy and direction that come from the board. And we are fortunate in that, excuse me, we live in a community where our commitment to the concept of sustainability and the principle of sustainability is pretty widespread, particularly on the East End. But the actual practice of sustainability is not as widespread as the support for the principle. And we have a good story to tell about this town's role in the practice of sustainability issues and implementations in a wide range of areas. So we're here to talk a little bit more about that today in greater detail. I will tell you that yesterday I spent a good portion of the day at Farmingdale State College, which I had a hell of a time finding, but I did find it eventually. And it was a program on solarization sponsored by the Nature Conservancy and others. And I was very pleased to be there representing the town, because anytime I was asked to introduce myself, there was someone in the audience who I didn't know who said, "Oh, you're the town who did this. Oh, you're the town. Can we get a copy of your HERS rating, or can we get a copy of your resolution for 100% renewable?" And that was unsolicited commentary from me, so I was glad to have my name tag on there that said Town of Southampton. That was very helpful. But more specifically, though, we wanted to talk about some of the things that have happened since last time this group was before the board about 8 weeks ago. So I'm going to turn this over to Christine, I guess, Greening Town Facilities, and have her talk a little bit about that. Is that right? Is that Christine here?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the town has a lot of opportunity to do more good work as we go forward with our redevelopment projects. And I'm speaking specifically about the Hampton Bays Jackson Avenue campus. We have compost sites that could be greened up a bit. We are working on an HVAC renovation project for the town hall. So we have that in mind as we move forward to make sure that we're doing energy efficiency and renewables where it makes sense. Tiana Bayside Center, where we're going to be moving towards a solar windmill installation. We already have solar on the roof, and it's a great education opportunity and partnership through Cornell and the town of Southampton. So we have a lot of opportunities to lead by example, especially as we're redeveloping the Jackson Avenue complex, because as you know, those buildings are beyond their prime in life stage, and we have a plan of systematically building new facilities, moving staff into them while we can take the old ones down. In addition, we've been talking about the yard waste facilities and their opportunity to incorporate renewable energies as a twofold program whereby we can produce a large amount of renewable energy and divert clean stormwater from entering into those areas and picking up those fine materials and bringing them downstream. So we have a very exciting future in front of us, and I think with the support of the board as well as the recommendations of the Sustainability Committee, we can make a positive and huge dent in this area. Furthermore, we're also on the tail end of our LED street light conversion, as well as our facility lighting program, which is going to be a huge both cost savings and energy efficiency program. So all of these measures serve to reduce the demand behind the meter. So we'll see it in our own utility bills, and that's a win-win. And we'll also see it as a region in our operational demand, if you will. Yeah, next page.
Next page. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I spoke about the town LED lighting program, so that was good. All of these measures help reduce the load behind the meter. So we began home energy efficiency programs through our work with Long Island Green Homes and our work with PSEG Long Island over the past few years, and you can see the noticeable difference when we changed our method of approach on outreach and education in this regard. And I have to thank Lynn Arthur for her incredible work with that, as well as the rest of us who have sat together and brainstormed of what is the right message to give to people about these home energy efficiency programs. Is it to save your budget, your household budget? Is it to save energy for the whole South Fork? And we came together with a number of great messages that we got out there. We also learned through this program that the face-to-face meetings was the most beneficial and effective way of getting this message out, because we could tie that nexus together between your own wallet and the South Fork issues that we have in the summertime with the peak power demand. You can see that we were very successful in 2016, 2017, and 2018, and it also compares what the adjacent municipalities are working on as well. 2017, we didn't have as many face-to-face meetings on it. We were taking the lead on some of the recommendations by Long Island Green Homes with the mailers, which actually proved to be less than 1% effective in raising the bar in terms of participation in the program.
0.07.
So I think that the lessons learned that we had on our home energy audits were that face-to-face meetings were very effective, as well as customer follow-up. If they had any issues, if they had any concerns, that we would address them in a timely fashion. So
we promoted both solar, which we'll talk about next, and the home energy program, along with other great town sustainable programs like the IA sanitary systems, at the Earth Day EV Car Expo that we had in 2018. We had the Renewable Energy Fair at Long Beach. We were at the Sag Harbor Fest, the Southampton Fest, and the Feast of San Gennaro. So we had tables there, and we invited the constituents to come in and listen to us. And it didn't matter if you were a resident of the town or just a visitor to our community, because the message is universal. So going on.
Who conducts those home energy audits?
They are
At Long Island Green Homes? Or no?
Long Island Green Homes, PSEG, they're the managers of this. They solicit vendors who are BPI certified, which is Building Professional Institute certified. So they have to go to special training to do these energy audits. They do a blower door test to see how tight your home is. They do inspections. They do a carbon monoxide test on your house. So they're pretty thorough in how they go through it. We were very diligent on staying on top of any constituent concerns, complaints about the timely submission of their reports or what have you. So we believe that the town, as a participant to this larger program, helped to do quality control on some of these issues. There's not so many BPI vendors on the South Fork, so we would like to make sure that we get these constituents served with the audit as soon as possible, so that they don't lose the interest in it.
Is that still available, the free audits? Yeah?
Yes, they are.
And
There's been a
auditors aren't
change.
connected to any company, like they're not trying to sell you blow-in installation or anything like that. They're just coming to kind of give you a objective
Well,
review?
It's part of a program that these contractors can provide an audit which identifies rebates to make the house more energy efficient. A lot of those rebates are specific to the constituent income level, the type of heating system they have, and where they're eligible for these grant funds. So usually the vendor works with the constituent to ask those questions, as well as Long Island Green Homes and PSEG, to figure out what path they go through. So if you have an oil burner in your house, you're not going to get a recommendation to talk about a condensing gas-fed boiler.
But if you do get if I may, if you
Yep.
do get a recommendation to do duct sealing or to do, to change the insulation in the house, and that vendor who did the audit provides that service, yes, they will put a price on the table for the service. They will offer the rebate, and they will encourage the homeowner to purchase the service from them. But what we always tell constituents in the presentations is that you're getting a shopping list. You can, it's completely voluntary. You can buy the service from the vendor, or you can shop it, or you can do it yourself. And you can do it on your own schedule,
Or not do it at all?
or not do it at all, exactly.
Thank you, because
And
that-
ultimately, it's important to understand that they're trying to get to a lower HERS rating. So they're motivated to do this. And, I haven't heard of any sort of bait and switch kind of thing. I think it's been
No.
done in a very extraordinarily good way. And most homeowners have gone through that have had good
Trust me,
reactions.
I get the phone calls, and then I get Christine involved, and we chase them down. We have members of the community who will stand up and talk about how the follow-up was great, we resolved the
Good.
issue.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the solar program now. So we had joined them together. So the rooftop solar also increases the renewable energy supply towards our goal. So we have participated now in 2 solarized programs. The outreach objective is to generate awareness and buzz and sign up for these residential homeowner audits to see if your roof is eligible for solar. So there's free solar evaluations, and the premise of the solarized program is bulk buying reduces the cost of the install. There's a lot of face-to-face outreach in this effort. We first meet with the group meeting, and then people sign up for that audit either during that presentation or through an online process. And then the solar vendor comes out and does the actual audit and goes through the different budget scenarios with that homeowner, albeit looking at the state and the federal tax credits and then the finance options. So we've promoted that, and you can see through that that graph up there that in 2015 we really spiked our solar permits per year number past compared to the former years. We've been promoting the renewable energy events. We had that at Long Beach, and at the Earth Day we had solarized signage, tri-energy signage around town that was very effective. Coming up this year, NYSERDA is offering or discussing the battery storage option, which is actually very helpful for those constituents that are not eligible for rooftop solar, because it provides them essentially a way to power their battery during low rate times overnight, right, where you're not paying so much for the power, charge your battery up and then turn your battery on during the times of the day where the rate increases for time of use. So we're working on getting that message out as NYSERDA develops that program. And the option to use battery storage in lieu of generators, fossil fuel generators.
Does that make more homes eligible for battery use when they may not get a perfect solar audit, because they have trees or whatever it might be where they're facing, so they have limited use of solar, but they still can use that to charge those batteries, and that widens the scope of what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Sorry, we're on to me. This is about the success of our home energy rating system, which is, as you commonly hear, HERS. And this program came about, it is a regulatory requirement in our town code, which is the most stringent in New York State. It goes above and beyond the New York State Building Code. And it basically takes into account that the scenario that we all know, which is modest homes are being demolished and much larger homes are being constructed with a much greater energy demand. So the HERS rating takes that into account and requires the homeowner to kind of account for that in that construction, and it has to be more efficient. And to get to that kind of score, it's not a mandate to provide solar, but it's an easy route to get to the score. So it's like an incentive embedded in there. And you can see that below that dashed line on that graph is solar due to HERS, which is showing you that this this requirement really works. And then above the dashed line is solar that is, based on the programs in tri-energy that Christine was just discussing. So those are voluntary programs because Lynn and Christine have gotten the word out doing those solarized campaigns. But below the dashed line is because we have these large homes that are required to account for their energy consumption and efficiencies, which is very interesting to me. And the other point I want to make is that obviously that they're not the only ones. There's commercial uses that are out there that could be also, we've been talking about how to consider having, it's sort of, if everybody took on the burden of energy production, we wouldn't need these giant fossil fuel plants. So it's this, coming back to local energy, local distribution, and where you have, and maybe it's a certain size commercial, obviously it's difficult to make like a Morton building super efficient or something, but there's plenty of possibility to put solar on the rooftops of commercial buildings, and that may be an avenue for you to explore in the regulatory realm, similar to the success of this program. And that just brings us up to our solar capability, and I think it's a really wise avenue to explore. Also, just in terms of also the HERS thing, homeowners are considering more things like geothermal as well. So that helps, the fuel consumption. You can heat your home with geothermal, and you don't have to deal with having an oil burner and those kinds of
Are
things.
we seeing more, this is more for the previous slide, but are we seeing more ground-based than before?
Not really.
It's mostly
That really
rooftop?
didn't, yeah, it's mostly.
Because we did
rooftop.
change the rules.
We did change it, but we haven't seen much in
A
that
big
way.
reaction to that.
That, it was like that incentive in the aquifer protection, that if you wanted to
Right,
put it, yeah,
It didn't hurt as much against your clearing.
it didn't. And we haven't seen too many people take advantage of it yet, so they might,
So it's mostly rooftop installations.
correct. But yeah, we want to make it easy on people. And as things go on and as the time of day and the battery storage and the way that you consume energy becomes important, these rooftops that not only face south but face west and other configurations become important.
So I guess it's me. And I was lucky enough to get the ugly slide filled with numbers, and no colorful graphs. But, yes, right. Yeah, I got a little red.
But that's the best message. This is the best message
So
right there.
when we talk about HERS and we talk about Solarize and all these other campaigns and programs, there's this big question of, and what does that mean? You know, these are our policies, and as you can read at the top, Southampton's local policies and programs have reversed the trend. So when we look at 2015 kilowatt hours in comparison to 2017, this data was a battle to receive via PSEG.
How long did it take you to get it?
I don't really want to say, but months. I think the last time we sat up here, we were pursuing Climate Smart Community program for certified. And we said to you that we were going to benchmark the town facilities. And we did that. And we found out we reduced that number. And then I think we said to you, we're going to pursue the community. And I think we looked at each other and wondered how we were going to do that. But then we contacted PSEG, and after 6 months to maybe a year, Frank sent one email, and they finally sent the data. And what it shows is that we reduced
What
by...
did we give away, Frank?
Yeah, right.
Not going to say on camera.
So what it shows is that we reduced our energy consumption from 2015 to 2017 by close to 3%. Now you're looking at that 2% decline at the bottom. That's regarding the entire East End area minus East Hampton, but we're talking about the incorporated villages as well. Now why does that matter? Well, when we look at Sag Harbor almost increased by 3%, yet we've decreased by close to 3%. Now, in 2010, there was an NYIT study, which I'm sure you're all aware of. They benchmarked all of Long Island. They looked at Southampton, and from that number to today, so 2010 to 2017, we've dropped close to 29%.
Wow.
There could be limitations,
From
and
when
you
to
know,
when?
from 2010 to 2017
Our energy consumption,
has declined. Yes. Now this
in
doesn't
spite
mean,
of the amount of new homes that were
Correct.
built. and
So-
additions?
Because the new homes are more energy efficient. They have
So-
geothermal, they have
Yeah,
solar,
but
they're
they're still
tighter.
using more energy than the vacant lot that they were on.
well, that's a good question
Not
though,
all
because
of them were
Not
vacant
all-
lots.
yes, and that's something I want to point out. So I didn't. This is something I'd like to look at in further detail with GIS, and I was unable to in the amount of time I had. But I looked at
One day.
census data from 2015 to 2017. So the U.S. Census says that we've gained 1,000 to 1,500 homes in the past 2 years. That doesn't count for the amount of homes that were demoed and rebuilt. Homes built in the 70s or 80s or 90s, then rebuilt post-2010.
Less efficient.
Post-2015 that are more efficient.
Yeah, but often larger than the homes that
Right,
were
but
down.
they have to, the larger they are, if Janice can always chime in here, or Christine regarding her standards, at some point, there's a level
Yeah,
of,
there's no net effect, there's no increase, and that's the whole point of the HERS.
which,
Right.
of course, now there could be some anomalies with this data, and data may not be as accurate as you'd like it to be, but it does show that there's a general trend that's declining.
It's very different than what their projections are for.
Yeah, we're going to
Well-
talk about that. Hold that thought.
And I can briefly touch on that. There's a difference between the annual consumption and then the peak consumption. So
Right.
when I originally said this when I
Their
originally,
annual consumption.
this is annual consumption. So when I originally spoke to PSEG, I believed that we'd show a decline, and PSEG kind of laughed at me. And I said, well, you know, we have HERS, we have these certain standards. I'm not saying there's going to be a decline on August 16th on a Saturday, but for annual,
Right.
there could be.
And
And
a lot of people have switched to LED bulbs.
Absolutely.
Big
Yeah.
Energy saver.
That's a 90%
It's been the main
savings
focus of
when you go
the
LED.
town of Southampton to do that, to add efficiencies wherever it's possible.
And
I
something to
think it's
keep in
starting to
mind,
be
that our
reflected.
HERS standards began in, I think, 2009, 2010. Sure enough, we're seeing a major drop.
Has our peak consumption risen?
You're
Those
going to see it
spikes
on the
in
next
August?
chart. We're going to see it on the next chart.
But Tom and John, you ask what I think is a core question, at least from my perspective. The emphasis has always been from the utility side that we need to focus on increased demand. And I think this data is suggesting, I think your question implies the same thing, that we really need to focus on decreasing peak demand. Not an increasing transmission, but decreasing increased peak demand. And that's a different strategy than increasing transmission. And that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of what's our future energy policy. I'm sorry, Dave.
It's interesting numbers.
But that's
though.
coming.
Anything else you want
And
to say?
now, that's only 2 years worth of data there. So
So I've requested-
You showed, in a moment ago, you talked about a larger period, but that's 2 years, so is this could be a weather effect too? I mean,
Well, the
Are
2
they-
years were, well, I don't think it's a weather
Well,
effect, because.
So you understand my question, like if it's more temperate in the summer, you're not gonna use as much air conditioning, that's gonna
Right.
change the numbers, or if it's a warmer winter.
Well, this is why it's great to see the other villages, because if it's a warm summer or a cold winter, they too would have a similar trend. But, you know, where we're dropping close to 3%, we have the village dropping only at 1.5%. Sag Harbor's increased their production. I mean, there's consumption by 3%, almost 3%. So I don't believe it would be,
And North Haven, too.
And
Right,
what
north-
about people changing their systems for heating and cooling, right? So we have people
We
who
don't
are
have that
moving from
information.
electric heat, which is extreme, you would see electric in those numbers. They're
this is-
moving to gas,
correct.
that's gonna be a big.
Well, this is
Decrease
kilowatts
in
and
it.
hours, so there
We're
are
missing,
ways.
though, we don't see the gas heat, we see only the electric heat.
It's a very tiny
We
fraction.
could figure that out. That's not within this data. That would not be
People getting these
KCG.
super energy efficient cooling systems now too, these heat pumps.
Yeah, heat pumps and tankless hot water heaters. I
Right,
just
so
put one
that
in
could
mine.
be a-
On-demand
yeah.
use.
And I went from electric to propane.
Right, so this doesn't have total energy consumption, but it
No,
has, is this
just
a
electricity.
reflection of electricity?
Correct.
Yeah, because electricity is the thing that is generating a lot of investment and ratepayer, expense. So that's why we're focused on that. And it's also the goal that you set.
It's also easier to obtain. If we were doing
Yeah.
oil and gas, we'd have to contact individual oil companies and gas companies. And NYIT report actually has all that data, so we could end up attaining it and then looking back at 2010 and saying, okay, well, how have we changed? Because that's how they originally obtained it. But it's just it's a bigger lift than contacting one company and asking them
Well,
to,
those are interesting numbers, for sure.
absolutely.
It's a good point. A lot of summer homes were constructed with electric heat. It was easy to install, and at the time, it was reasonable as far as energy.
And now people are living in them year-round.
Right.
Yeah,
Now that
and
they've been
that's a
converted.
really good point, because they were designed primarily, the way they would consume energy was in the summer, not in the winter.
And the shoulder seasons,
Yeah.
and they
And
would
the
shut them
shoulder
off for the
seasons,
winter.
Right, and they've switched to those really efficient units, those heat pump units, which aren't great in the middle of the winter, but for the shoulder season, they're terrific.
But also, a lot of the technologies are using parasitic sources of energy too. So you're seeing technologies like the on-demand water systems that are actually taking energy from the water that's being delivered, rather than using a lot of extraneous electricity to
Yeah.
create that system. So you're seeing a lot of efficiencies just within the technologies themselves, which is really, and I think it's reflected somewhat in this. I think these numbers reflect a whole series of things. Certainly, houses are more efficient. Certainly, technologies have increased or decreased their use of electricity. And also, I think it's reflective a little bit of consumer awareness. That's also part of that people are much more, the systems that are put in to regulate thermostats and those kinds of things. So across the band, I think you're seeing a pretty realistic number, but it's there are anomalies through there. I think it certainly needs more fidelity, but the problem is getting the data.
Exactly.
So this is where I make the plug that as a town, we need to work in a way with those data sources to get that data so that we can actually measure our success, that's being hinted at here, but the specifics we're not able to get in the proper time from organizations like PSEG and so forth.
So to Tommy John's question, this next chart, there's going to be two more charts where you're going to see these in detail. I just wanted to show this overlay first. A year ago, in May of 2017, the Sustainability Committee sent a letter to Tom Falcone asking him to send or give us access to people who could explain the methodology behind how the graph on the right, which was their forecast, was, what was the analysis that was done, the methodology they used in order to come up with those numbers, because Jay, you were the one who said to us, I don't buy that, it's too linear. So we made the ask, and after quite a long time, it was December 5th when we actually had the meeting. PSEG sent 9 people here to Southampton, and I think, John, you were at the meeting. I don't think you were there, Julie. I think Christine was there, but Kyle, Janice, Christine, Frank, and myself were there. You might have been too. Anyway, they gave us this chart on the right, and this chart on the right is a slight modification to the former chart which you saw in the South Fork RFP. And at the time, Janice asked the question, do you still stand, I mean, it's been almost 4 years since you released this data. Do you still stand by it? Have you gone back and changed it? Have you validated it? And they said, nope, this is what we are planning. These are our planning numbers. And she wrote, as you can see in pencil here, they said it's about we're expecting a 2.5% to 3% compound growth rate, and that's our planning number for the South Fork based on everything we know. So what we did was to rationalize these numbers to we also foiled. So after that meeting in December.
Well, could I just
Sure.
interject, because I was at that meeting, and one of the things that struck me, and the reason I want to make the point, is that one of the officials there from PSEG made the statement that, well, you guys are building all these houses. It was almost a preconceived notion
John
that the efficiency was, that their numbers were correct because we're building homes.
Big houses, and those people don't
And not
care.
including the HERS ratings and
We
our
did
drive towards
question that
efficiency.
In terms of, well,
Yeah, we
looked at
questioned it
how
quite
much
loudly.
vacant land versus rebuilds versus, there's a lot of other
Yeah, it's a little more
considerations
complicated than
there.
that.
That
I think
might
was
be
the
true
reason.
for water consumption.
And to your
Yeah,
point,
it's
John,
not true
we
for,
did
there's only so much
say-
vacant land left, and then if you look at the housing stock, there's only so many that are really going to
Right.
redevelop.
So this table
And
was
we're
based on
preserving
an
a lot.
assumption by
It's
them.
based on an assumption.
Yeah, and most people that look at data, when they see a line like that, just kind of roll their eyes, because
Yeah, it's
really not
linear, it's
reflective
linear,
of-
right.
of a line
we
that you
did,
see.
we did ask at that meeting, and they agreed that, given all that's changed, the HERS rating, the LED lighting experiment, the success of the solar program, et cetera, should not this data be reevaluated? And they agreed, yes, it probably should be. To date, that reevaluation hasn't happened, and we're trying to get them to the table to look at that. But Lynn
Well, I
wants,
think more importantly is that they're making capital decisions based on an
Absolutely.
incorrect set of
Absolutely.
data, which is going to lead to infrastructure, unsightly infrastructure that we don't actually need.
100%
That's the
correct.
point. I remember when I was up at the county and the State Board of Corrections was telling us about our prison population, and they had numbers just like that, how it was going to keep growing, and that we had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on new jail capacity. And I said, well, we have all these programs, alternatives to incarceration, all these things are changing. You're basically extrapolating from a very small set of data to what's going to happen in the future. I think you're wrong. And they were wrong. And we stopped the spending of at least $100 million in a capital program. And it turns out the population, not only did it not go up, it went down significantly.
Well, this
So
is the
based
same
on-
kind of story here.
It's the same
Except
thing.
it's
Same exact
700
Actually,
million.
Thank God we were able
and
to
and
convince
this data
them.
is potentially supporting a $750 million investment in infrastructure on the
That we will be asked to pay in a disproportionate, based on our efficiencies and what
Yeah,
we've realized
exactly.
here, and I think that's a bad thing. And
So I want you to
Makes
notice
wonder
the-
if somebody's promoting the data for,
I want,
know,
well,
certain
definitely.
reason.
I want you to notice the shape of the curve, and then look on this chart. See that green? The green here, but this data that they gave us only goes, it starts with 2017, 18. So what we had to do was to normalize the two sets of data against each other So and we validated this, but it's not on a chart, so I want to tell it to you. We're arguing that the assumption here in 2016 is a basis of, I think it's 280 megawatts. Now, that also includes a 10%, 10% is for, contingency. That's what we've been led to believe, what they told us in the meeting, that when they plan, they always have a 10%, they plan for 10% more in case for fluctuation. So the green represents the numbers based on 280, based on the orange. And what you're looking at is what you asked earlier. The blue is the actual from the foil, from LIPA data. Here is 5 years, 2013 through 2018. This is average annual for the whole South Fork.
Plus the 10% contingent.
It's in there, yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's the
So
that's the average.
That's the blue,
that is
and the-
Justifies this number.
And the red
Okay.
is the peak, including the 10%.
Which is what they have to plan for, which is what we pay for.
Yes.
And if,
Oh, it's a peak plus 10.
yep, and when I have this in a spreadsheet, I didn't add the trend line here because it just makes the chart all that too busy. The trend across the peak is flat and slightly declining. But again, it's all due to weather. 2016, we had that hot week, and we blew through our former threshold that was set back in 2010.
Well, the peak, just to clarify for who's ever listening, the peak is affected by that weather.
Yeah.
So when those two separate out, then we're penalized because of that one peak or that particular anomaly.
But the peak is not going at the trajectory of the
Same.
curve. It's the shape of the curves, and when you compare the two, that really is what this chart is making an attempt to educate. And this is, by the way, due to you. You guys, you have the policies that you've approved, the programs that you've funded. This is the result. This is a tangible result. We should be celebrating. This is awesome.
Yay.
So,
There's a little more energy in
Between the
No more
blue and the
electricity.
orange,
Not too
all
much.
that energy.
Yeah, right.
Who realizes that? Like, they sell that energy, like, that capacity. The difference between that blue line and that peak line is your peak difference.
that's a really good question, and I would like to put that on an agenda for another day.
Yeah, there's also delivery lag. So when you have a fossil fuel
Another
plant
day.
that's producing power, it can't
So-
always match that demand. And there's a lot of loss. So there's a lot of heat loss between here and when we receive it.
Pardon?
And they overproduce.
Yeah.
They have to do it. That's the only way to
So
deliver that power.
that's the good news. That is great. That is news. That is great news. It's new news, and it warms my heart. I mean, it's great. We're actually seeing success from our efforts. This is all good. Now, but there's always after good news is an ask. So as long as we have now poured syrup on everyone, we want to ask you to do something for us. On Long Island, there's something, the LIPA offers something called a feed-in tariff. And for the benefit of those who might be listening who don't understand what that is, it's a mechanism that the utility has to fund a large solar array, as an example. So you're a developer, you want to do a big renewable project or build a big house. You need capital in order to make that initial investment. So in order to get financing to underwrite the capital, you've got to have some sort of revenue stream coming in. So in this case, LIPA has something called a feed-in tariff, and they have a very lucrative feed-in tariff, by the way, at 16.5 cents. It's fantastic. And up island, there are large arrays going in on buildings, multi-million-dollar projects, and very successful because they can get 16.5 cents per kilowatt for these projects. By the way, just so that as a point of reference, a commercial entity that is buying power from LIPA is paying less than that. So they're getting paid more than the cost of the same electricity that they would be buying from the utility. The problem is LIPA inadvertently has precluded the South Fork from participating because the minimum array size is 200K. Now, on my house, which is 2,000 square foot, I have a 10K system, and it provides 100% of the electricity for my house. My bill, as I say in these presentations all the time, is less than $13 every single month. So imagine a 2,000 square foot house,
Now,
fully
this is
covered.
only commercial though.
Wait, but hold on, I'm just making a point of reference. 20 times the size of my house is the minimum array size in order to participate.
So 40,000 square feet.
We just don't have buildings like that on the South Fork. So the ask is that the town board send a letter to LIPA, to Tom
We don't even
Falcone.
allow 40,000 square foot buildings in
That's
most
the
cases.
point.
That's it.
That's exactly the
Exactly.
point. So we can't take advantage of, no commercial entity out on the East End could take advantage of this feed-in tariff because we don't build buildings of that size. So Lynn's point is, it probably was an oversight.
Yeah, they didn't
What
think
we,
about
what
it.
we should be doing is, can our commercial entities take advantage of this? So in order for them to do that, you have to take that 40,000 square foot number and put it down to a size that's actually feasible on the East End. That's really the ask.
Is there a different feed-in tariff, or there's no
No,
feed-in?
no, there's
There's
none.
none.
There's just one left. And by the way, I've already run this by, coincidentally, I ran into the CEO of PSEG. He said that they would take a look at it. I sent it to them, but we haven't heard from them. I ran it by a LIPA board member. He thinks it's a great idea. I've shared it with the Department of Public Service. They think it's a great idea. And also, we ran it by the Town of East Hampton's Energy Sustainability Committee last night, and they are waiting for us. And if you are, willing to, we're going to maybe draft a letter. If you're willing to sign a letter making the ask, they would consider,
So
signing
are
it
you,
also.
is the recommendation,
The recommendation is to send a letter to the CEO and ask them
What size?
to modify.
to what, though? Are we
Well-
specifically saying?
Well,
We'll ask,
10,000 square feet?
yeah, we'll ask for 10,000, and maybe they'll come back with something else.
But
Well,
I do have a question on that. How they make that determination, I'd like to see that, those rules that they're
determination?
operating. Well, if it's 40,000 square feet or based on a consumption number, right, or a production number, can that be distributed? So if we have a municipality, as an example, that is the owner of distributed solar, let's say, rather than having one single site at 1 acre, but rather distributed that 1 acre's worth of power, does that make us still eligible for the feed-in?
Well, that's why we ask, we have to keep it as simple as possible.
But I'd like to see the actual, those rules that they're operating
Oh, okay.
under. Yeah, I
You can
mean,
get-
that would be
definitely.
useful,
Easy,
so
easy,
that,
easy.
We don't even have a lot of 10,000 square foot buildings. I would drop it to 5,000. I think that would make
Okay,
a lot of
sure.
properties eligible. I don't know, and let's start with that as our bottom.
Okay.
well, I don't want to be arbitrary about it. I want it to be tailored
We'll
towards.
pick a number that's consistent with what the
Yeah.
zoning and building code allows for commercial structures.
Right.
Well,
I think
And
5,000
then
is a good
Yeah,
number.
okay.
And then as long as we're asking, we might as well throw in, since we're the South Fork with this problem, right, they think, let's ask for an additional incentive, like a penny, instead of 16 and a half cents, maybe 17 and a half cents, maybe for west-facing roofs, another half a penny.
But in order to
we'll make an ask,
incentivize
and
them
they'll-
to change the rule,
Yeah.
we have to be able to say that we would take
We have
advantage
some, yeah.
under X, Y, Z.
This is
And that's
like-
what I would like to have in that letter if
Sure.
we decide to do
so
it.
you're
For
asking the
instance, we-
16 cents
To
or
add-
17 cents?
Yeah, add another penny.
To the, I mean,
Because you
well,
don't have the big size. Now you have a smaller size, so you get paid a little more
To
per.
incentivize.
Well, they're decentivizing it now by not even
How hard
allowing
is it for them to
So
change
not
the
only are we
tariff?
allowing them, we're asking them to shrink the size and actually pay more.
Well, if it was intentional, I would agree, but I think it was an inadvertent.
I wouldn't
At least
confuse
that's
those
what I
two
understand
asks.
it.
I would just do the one ask.
Yeah, my source is Department of Public Service, and I'm being told that modifying an existing tariff is a lot faster than starting a new one, just in terms of time. Another point of information I want you to understand is, remember a year ago when we started to complain about the fact that net metering was going away? It went away for commercial, and it's going to go away for residential at the end of next year, and we're all very unhappy about that, because that economically is a disincentive when it goes away, because the new system is very complicated and difficult to work with, and doesn't yield as much of a discount. Well, guess what? The commercial solar business has gone over a cliff. Since VETR went into effect, there's like literally no business being sold, and that's happening all over New York State. So that's one of the reasons why LIPA has this tariff out there, is to kind of provide a vehicle for transition to keep the business moving ahead. But like I said before, the problem is on the South Fork, we can't take advantage unless they modify it to make it smaller.
Shouldn't we be asking them to go back and reinstate the, what is
That
it?
actually is already in process.
It's
The
net metering by
residential
another
Net
name.
metering.
Yeah, the Department of Public Service has taken that up on a statewide level, and I really don't want to say on camera what I have heard, it's just rumor, but it would appear that some kind of recommendation is coming forward, maybe sometime in the first 6 months of next year.
Well,
But
I would
it's not
imagine
here
there's a
yet.
lot of lobbying from the loss of business on the solar industry. So they're experiencing a lot of pressure.
At the program I was at yesterday, John, to your point, there were probably 60 people in attendance, and I would say 45 of them were solar installers.
Yeah, well, that says it all.
So I just wanted to point out, you've seen this barn, probably driven by it when you're driving out east, through Watermill. But the one on the lower right, that's a great rooftop to put a large array on, incentivize. The one on the upper left, that's Tom Otis. They bought their system under the Solarize program this year, and that happens to be a 200K system. And on the right, that is a large array on a marina. I think that particular one is on the North Fork. But, these are just some examples of commercial entities, who could benefit. And when they're able to participate in a feed-in tariff, the economic benefit goes to that owner, as opposed to a developer, like you've heard about lease. When you lease land and you get paid for the lease price,
So
you're
how
not
are
getting
they-
the benefit of the economics.
How are they defining that? Would a municipality be able to take advantage of that in the same way a commercial would, right? So if we have projects like to put covers over our composting facilities in order to, it's angled, it's supposed to let the water go away so it doesn't interrupt the composting, it makes it a lot more efficient, a lot more manageable. And we put solar panels on top of that. It's just, there's the project that Christine was just describing earlier. That makes a lot of sense to do that.
Right.
And as a municipality, we would qualify, in a large way, it strikes me, that we could take advantage of that kind of thing.
Yeah, what would,
That's all, and it's also true, you're 100% correct, I believe, John. And as we look at some of the other improvements that we propose to be making in the whole complex of Jackson Avenue, there will be buildings in that configuration that could benefit and offset the cost of construction of those buildings significantly if we get this kind of modification. Right now, there's really no financial incentive for us to produce a revenue stream out of that kind of facilities improvement. So your point is well taken.
and there are options. We look at the whole configuration of what assets do we have to work with? I mean, do we want to get the energy credit so that we can offset the costs of running the operation there? Or is it better, more financially advantageous to the town to bring in a developer who can take advantage of things like tax credits? Or is it better to have a developer and just do a feed-in tariff and then do a lease to purchase? There's going to be multiple options, but, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
You mentioned East Hampton. I'm sure that Southold, Riverhead, and Shelter Island are also in the same boat as far as the feed-in tariff and the
Well,
requirements for commercial.
this feed-in tariff, well, the reason why I'm just focused on the South Fork, because we've already been designated as a load pocket with growth challenges, that gives them the ability to fence it. You see, once they make a tariff modification, they don't want to, because the tariff, there's a cost to them of offering this. So there's only so much capacity that's associated, it's like a block, it's a block. And once the block is sold out, there might be, a gigawatts worth of energy. I don't know what the numbers are, but just let's say there's a gigawatt, and 80% of it's already been subscribed by Arrays Up Island. So we don't want them to, and it's harder for them to increase the block. But what we're saying is take what's left in the block and allow the South Fork to participate in that deal, but in smaller, bite-sized pieces.
Do you think that commercial businesses up the island would take advantage of it for the smaller ones?
Much faster than we will,
Well,
yes.
yeah.
They'll suck that up in a heartbeat. So that's why when we focus on the South Fork, we already have an exception, a fensible, why this should be treated differently. See, Southold they're not a load pocket on Southold or Riverhead or Brookhaven, or Huntington.
Well, their
or
commercial
anybody else.
buildings are similar to ours. The size
Yeah,
is similar to ours.
yeah.
So we'd be competing against them.
We would compete with them and they would beat us. Because it's just going to be faster. Cool.
So that's our story, and the bottom line being that the programs that are the outgrowth of policies established by the board are having real measurable success. The town is being recognized as a leader in this field, and I think as we continue to move forward, we'll have greater and greater success. I think it's important because board members individually and collectively always ask the question, how are we getting there? What's the evidence that we're making some progress? So the work that Michael has done and others here are demonstrating some real efforts, and it encourages other policy changes that might produce even greater results as we move down the road. So we thank you for that. The board is going to consider, in the packet today, there is the notice of the initial public hearing around the concept of CCA. Lynn and others have worked on an outreach plan for the community so that we can begin to get some sense of how the community feels about that. And as we go through that process, we'll learn even more about the things that we may be able to do to help to continue to move in this direction. Stating the obvious, we're a community that this is desperately needed from an economic perspective. I think one of our last slides, I saw at one point, that smart environmental decisions are smart economic decisions, and I think they are. The evidence is very clear and I think indisputable, not only for our residents in our community, but for the town as a whole. Our LED project is going to benefit us financially, as opposed to being friendly to the environment and reduce our energy consumption.
So you guys are going to recommend a draft letter to us?
Yes.
And send the regulation that forms the basis of that request? So
Correct.
we can compare it. Great.
We'll get that to you.
Okay.
Okay?
It
Any
will
other
be well
questions?
received.
else?
and-
All right,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Interesting.
All right, we're almost done. Is Councilman Scalera coming back?
I have no idea.
Said she was gonna, I believe I heard her say that she will be back, but I'm not sure what time she said she would be back.
So let's do some updates.
Thanks, Michael.
I guess quite a bit's happened since our last work session.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week for me.
Think for all of us.
Let me start by, I guess we should congratulate all the victors on Tuesday's Election Day. Lots of changes in different places, state senate, et cetera. But what I wanted to mention was that there is going to be a work session. This is a kind of an added work session next week in Flanders. It's a special work session at 6 p.m. at the Crowan Center to talk about the Maritime Trail Park. The consultant Arias Design will present a 90% plan, and we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on it. This is for that trail going from State Route 24 down to the riverside over there.
What's the date?
It's going to be on
Next Thursday,
Next-
November 15th.
Thank you.
November 15th,
Yeah, so
next
we'll have
Thursday.
a regular work session in the morning, like today, and there's going to be a special work session at 6 o'clock at Crowan.
So it's exactly like their 50% plan, just the added, okay.
Well, it's
So we're up to
90%
90 now.
plan.
All right.
It's, for 6 p.m., Thursday, November 15th. I mean, I wish we had been able to weigh in a little, as a town board, a little bit earlier, because now it's, they're 90% planned out, having met with the community, not necessarily with the town board. I did attend the meeting they had at Crohan with the community, the last one. Some of you may have been there.
I think we were all there.
And they have added quite a bit to, I think, what the original concepts were. So there's parking areas and exercise,
Kind
is
of
it exercise loop,
blossomed.
and there's
The bathrooms.
observation decks and bathrooms, and we haven't budgeted for a park of that size in that area, but, you know, we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on that.
Good, I'm glad.
And it's county property, and it would be a county park.
Yes, be county park, county land, so we would be doing improvements on county land. Okay, that's really all I have for announcements at the moment.
Had to bring it up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just wanted to mention, we do have 2 other public meetings coming up with regard to the Suffolk County Water Authority.
Okay, yeah.
And the board, if you recall, when the Suffolk County Water Authority was here 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we agreed to host, along with the Suffolk County Water Authority, 2 meetings at the Hampton Bays High School auditorium. We didn't have the place confirmed when we talked last. That has now been confirmed. November 28th, which is a Wednesday evening, I believe, and December 18th. Both meetings will be from 7:30 to 9. The board has received copies of a draft Q&A brochure that we are going to be mailing to all of the residents prior to that meeting. Those dates are on the mailing.
You had asked for comment on that.
Yeah.
What was the deadline? Because I did have a couple issues. Maybe I can just find you afterwards. And
If you could, John, because we're going to send this to a printer mailing house so that we get it printed and mailed in one fell swoop.
What's the December date again?
December 18th, John.
December 18th.
18th, isn't that what I said?
Yes.
No, 18.
Yeah, we can do that. We want to get it to the printer sometime tomorrow so that they can print it and mail it, and folks get it at home before the Thanksgiving weekend, because the meeting would be the Wednesday following Thanksgiving.
No, there was a couple typos, but there was also a line that just jumped out at me. So
Okay, sure. And CRC is, I mean, the draft was forwarded to us both through our work here and the Suffolk County Water Authority. So we want to clean up dates and capitalizations and commas and periods and so forth. But this will go out in the mail. So I just wanted to mention that. And then there will be, Janice has prepared a formal meeting notice that we will also put on our website and will go out. And we are including, obviously, all the board members who would like to attend and are available to attend. The same audience of people from Suffolk County Water Authority who were here making the presentation, and we're sending invitations to the management and staff of the Hampton Bays Water District and inviting them to attend to the meeting as well. So we'll have as broad an audience covered in that presentation as possible. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks.
Also, there's a meeting between now and our next work session. There's a FAA meeting at Riverhead High School next Wednesday, 7 p.m. I think this is a result of a bill that got passed by Congressman Zeldin requiring these hearings within a 30-day period after that bill went into effect. So I'm going to be there. I think the East End Supervisors and Mayors Association has also asked me to be there. But if anybody else wants to come to it, this has to do with the impacts of airport noise on the community.
You're going to send that out? Or are you just going to?
Well, I just told you.
But I forgot.
What is it? I'm sorry.
7 o'clock at Riverhead High School next Wednesday, the 14th.
November 14th.
November 14th. Any other announcements?
I have a couple.
Okay.
There's
Sure.
Last week, I think I told everybody that I was going to be part of the Fisheries Technical Working Group. That's local commercial fishermen working with the wind developers to try to get a good conversation going. We did have our first meeting last Friday. It was well attended. We had commercial fishermen, supporters of commercial fishermen, wind developers, and many state and federal agencies such as BOEM and NYSERDA and New York State DEC. It was an all-day meeting. We went over lots of stuff, but I think at the end, what I took back from that is that the wind developers and the fishermen need to communicate, and we're going to do that by one of our first goals, one of our first objectives is to get a calendar and a map, because there's wind installations proposed from Virginia up to Rhode Island that our New York fishermen fish in those waters. So we need some sort of all-encompassing map and timeline to see where all these separate projects are going, so we can comment on all of them as a cumulative. So we're also looking to get the wind developer some more good data directly from fishermen. The fishermen who have been fishing for 30, 40, 50 years know where this stuff is, and we want the wind developers to know that good information. So I'm looking forward to the next meeting.
How was the communication, Julie? I know I attended one of those meetings earlier this year, and the wind developers were asking the fishermen if they wanted the turbines in lines or in triangles.
Right, we're not quite there to that detail yet, but I'm sure we will get there. Yeah, that's one of our objectives, is to installation, setup, and locations. Last night I had a youth board meeting, and one of our projects for this upcoming year is going to be to address mental health issues, especially in our youth. And to that end, there is a meeting on Monday, November 19th at 8 p.m. at Southampton Hospital's Parish Memorial Hall, talking about mental health. They're going to have a video and also a round table for discussion. Also, Youth Bureau is sponsoring an Extreme Rec Day on Monday, November 12th. Any questions, you can call the Youth Bureau for details.
Extreme rec?
Yes, Extreme Recreation Day, yes.
Cool.
Okay. John, you have anything to share?
Nothing at this time.
No, I'm good.
All right, so we do have a couple exec items, acquisitions, confidential legal advice as well. So I'll make a motion to end our regular work session and go into executive session on those items.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bovee, all in favor?
Aye.